show. And so we're going to have 5 volunteers total. Penny's going to start us off. And she's going to pick one of the cards that I have here. And it corresponds to one of the authors that we have up here. And there are 4 details about each of the authors on their cards. And she has to decide which one is the actual truth.
I don't know how to work it. Is that a suspicious thing?
I wore my most unreliable looking cardigan.
No cardigan can be unreliable.
It can be, you'd be surprised. That's the point.
Okay. Penny has chosen Marcia Clark.
Oh, wait a minute. First I want to meet her. Hi, Marcia.
Hi, Penny. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Marcia is a woman of many talents. The witty, intelligent, best-selling writer is a former attorney who's been on both sides of the legal table. She's also worked as a legal commentator, a scriptwriter, and an actress. She appeared in Pretty Little Liars. So she should be pretty good at this. All right. Number 1. Marcia Clark danced with a folk ballet troupe that toured the U.S. and Canada. Number 2. Marcia played chess for money and got paid to give lessons. Number 3. Her first husband flew a plane with the message, "Will you marry me?" And number 4. During undergrad, she waitressed at Hamburger Hamlet and waited on Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward.
And I have to pick out the lies.
Yep. You have to pick out the truth.
Oh, I have to pick out
Or
the
lies. Which one's the truth?
They're all lies. Can I see your calves?
One
I think I'm not a murderer.
You know, I asked her the same thing just an hour ago.
I got laughed at. What was your answer?
Which story was that to verify?
The marriage proposal. Obviously.
Hey, you got someplace to
No, which one's?
Which one is the lie or which one is the truth? They're all lies except one.
The truth.
They're all lies except one, right?
Which one's
Correct.
true?
It is a fiction.
Okay.
They are fiction.
Penny thinks that Marcia waitressed at Hamburger Hamlet and waited on Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward. Is that true?
Do I have to say? Okay. Well, it's half true. It's actually half true.
But it's not all the way true.
Not all the way true, no.
I can pick the half that's true.
You can tell. No.
Fractions. We have math. It's
But
fractions.
you can tell them what is true about that.
What is true? I did work at Hamburger Hamlet as a waitress.
And you waited on
And I waited on Steve McQueen and Ally McGraw. They were that cool. They were. They really were.
Did they tip good?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, they came in barefoot. They came in barefoot. I said, you know, and Steve McQueen goes, "You're Steve McQueen."
Okay.
I'm done?
No.
Oh.
What's your next guess?
I gotta pick another one that's true?
Yeah. She danced with the folk ballet, or played chess for money, or her first husband flew a plane with the message, "Will you marry me?"
Yeah. I'll take that one.
Her first husband?
Yeah.
All right, Marcia, she thinks it's that your first husband flew a plane with the message, "Will you marry me?"
No.
I've got a 50-50.
What is true about that?
What is true is during that trial, a guy did fly a plane saying, "Will you marry me?" I'm sure it was sincere, although we'd never met.
Involved in a trial.
No big deal.
Wait a minute.
What was she charged with?
All right.
Play chess.
lessons?
I did not.
You played what?
Backgammon. And I did give lessons for money. And I did play for money.
And she did dance with the folk ballet.
There's a pro back there.
Not anymore.
It's strictly back room. It's very dicey.
All right, who would like to take the shot next? Next volunteer, anybody?
What do they got?
That was terrible.
It was just, it was red.
I've been for a very long time.
Next we have Chris Holm.
Was it your cast, Chris?
Despite earning a trip to the principal's office at the age of 6 for his first story, Chris Holm persevered. Now he's an award-winning author with the Collector Trilogy and a slew of short stories to his name. So, did Chris drive 5 hours to a signing to have only his cousin show up? Did he run a drill press at a factory that made backhoes? Did he get his first tattoo at an ex-con's apartment above a Greek restaurant? Or has he been shot at?
So it's been what? I'll go with the Greek one. Yeah.
Chris, did you get your first tattoo at an ex-con's apartment above a Greek restaurant?
Absolutely not. That would be a horrible idea, incredibly unhygienic, and it was an Italian restaurant.
So you drove 5 hours to a signing that
Is it on your
only-
calf?
It actually is.
The tattoo is on his calf.
Yes.
Can I see your calf?
Did he run a drill press at a factory that made backhoes, or has he been shot at? The first one. Did you drive 5 hours to a signing that only your cousin showed up at?
No, but only because the bookstore was 4 hours away. That was actually, by the way, immediately after a sold-out signing that did wonderfully and was fantastic, and I was riding high on that when I was invited. And not only was he the only person who showed up, he showed up 20 minutes late.
Waited.
Did he work at the bookstore?
Did he buy a book?
He did, in fact, buy the book.
Now you're down to 50-50. He ran a drill press at a factory that made backhoes, or he's been shot at?
Well, he lives in Maine. Drill press, all good.
The drill press part is true. We made forklifts. I was shot at, yes.
In Maine.
No, I was not shot at in Maine. I'm from upstate New York, from a large Catholic family, and like most large Catholic families, I have a fuck-up cousin. And
That's Appalachian.
yeah, exactly. Literally the same cousin who drove 2 hours to be 20 minutes late to my signing at the bookstore.
He's a loyal fucker.
Yeah. Once you've been shot at together, it really bonds you. No, he had some trouble with drugs when he was younger, and so when he decided to go to a housewarming party for a buddy of his who just got his first apartment at 17, his mom asked me, the good student, bookish kid, to go watch after him, make sure he didn't get into too much trouble. Turns out it wasn't so much a housewarming party as it was one dude under a black light weighing 2 trash bags of weed into quarters and eighths, while 2 other guys tripped their faces off having played video games. We didn't actually get to hang out for much of the weighing and tripping because as soon as we got there in the sketchiest area of Syracuse, he locked us out of his car. So we actually spent the next 4 hours trying to get into the car with a coat hanger, during which the sun set. A crowd gathered to watch us and eventually got drunk enough. They popped off a couple of shots with a 22 in our direction. I'm pretty sure they just intended to scare us. It worked. What can I say about that?
Another volunteer. Captain. Sean Doolittle is a professional baseball pitcher. Oh wait, that's the wrong bio. Sean is the dashing award-winning thriller suspense writer whose credits include the 2013 ITW's Best Paperback Original winner, Lake Country.
That Sean Doolittle kid in San Francisco has hijacked all my Google accounts. Well, I've known about him since he was in high school because he was a star pitcher in high school, and gradually his name started creeping into my mailbox. I've been following this little bastard for 7 years now. And for a while he was injured, and I thought maybe his major league career was going to be over, and I was kind of pleased about that. And then they switched him back to pitcher, and he's been kicking ass, and I no longer exist on the internet.
Yes, and literally taking names.
And taking mine.
Sean once wrote a monthly column in a national magazine about pet accessories. His grandfather was shot in the back by a farmhand. He had a pet rabbit as a kid, and he named it Travis McGee. He was in a bank while it was being robbed.
Now, did you live anywhere near Chris's
Sean, was your grandfather shot in the back by a farmhand?
He was. This is Marcia may enjoy this case actually.
Did you get convicted?
No, the farmhand. So my grandfather. And this when I was a kid, I heard this story so many times and I just didn't care. And I wish that I had because it's a great story. But yes, my grandfather hired this guy who worked for him for a while. One day, Grandpa came back from town. The farmhand knew he would have money. Shot him with a .410 shotgun, which he stashed in a horse tank, and then went back home. He was living with my grandparents at the time. So my grandfather pulled through. Everything was fine, but they gradually pieced together through footprints and things. They found the guy's muddy shoes stuffed in an old wood stove, and they matched it to the footprints on the scene and figured out that he was the guy. Arrested him, but in the trial. I can't remember how exactly it went, but I think the shoe submitted into evidence was a left, and the footprint that they had. It's
Well,
true.
that same jury actually.
Didn't fit, and didn't quit. And so, anyways, the guy got off in that case, but later, many years later, he actually murdered a shop owner and his wife and received a death sentence and died on death row in Nebraska. So that's my story.
Sean's fiction is equally uplifting.
My grandmother, who was the sweetest, I never heard my grandmother say a harsh word about anyone except Wesley Peary was the guy's name. And when he had a heart attack and died in prison, she was livid beside herself because she wanted to see him go to the chair so badly.
Wow. I want to hear about Travis McGee, the mine.
Yeah.
Okay, I made up the pet rabbit while he was robbed, yes, or while the bank was robbed. However, he did write a monthly column, but it was about.
What was yours?
I said pet accessories.
Right. I wrote a women's fashion accessories column for 2 years. My first job out of college was writing for a computer magazine in Lincoln, Nebraska. And after I had worked on staff there for a couple of years, went on with my life, but I found that they doled out a lot of freelance work, which was a great way to make some cash while my wife and I were a young married couple. And, over time, the format of the magazine changed slowly from high-tech gadgets to guys to kind of a Martha Stewart angle, technology-based lifestyles and technology sort of magazine that was aimed at women. So my column gradually morphed from, toys for boys to accessories for women. And they didn't have anybody else, so I just kept doing it. I really loved it.
Tom can sell you
Like iPhone cases and stuff
Oh,
like
okay.
that. When I say women's technology,
I thought it was way too big.
Stop there.
I didn't mean that.
We have Rabbit.
I had a dog named Snoopy. I don't know.
Do we have another volunteer? We have 2 authors left. Okay. Lock them in.
Let's see the house. Yeah, I get really. I don't know.
Hey, who's taking her? Julie. Okay. Julie Hyzy is the award-winning author of the Alex St. James Mysteries, the White House Chef Mysteries, and the Manor House Mysteries. Did you also know she was in a JCPenney's commercial? During an autopsy, her stomach growled. That's what brought about the White House Chef Mysteries. She shot a .50 caliber sniper rifle and hit the bullseye on the target 3 rows down. Her college nickname was Hoof because she didn't have a car and she hoofed it everywhere.
Let's see your cat.
Everybody, come on.
It's gonna be a first time after the end.
Guess I'll be on the board one.
The morgue. When you were watching an autopsy at the Cook County morgue, did your stomach growl?
Absolutely true.
You got it. I was hungry, and they held up this huge liver. And sorry. No, at the Cook County morgue. I mean, you read. I don't know if you read about how they were overpopulated for a while there. I was there not this most recent time, but it was very much overpopulated when I was there, and it was during the summer. And it was pretty horrific. However, okay, you know when you watch on TV and you see all those lovely drawers and they pull them out like a castle or whatever, and those pretty metal doors and everything's lovely. Yeah, no, it's not like that at all. Picture oversized cookie sheets.
Don't ruin cookies for me.
and each one holds another person.
Don't do it autopsies.
No, this is a storage room only. This is a storage room only. And they're like bunk beds. They're like, 3, 4 high. And there's 100 of them. There's 150, maybe 200 of them. And then they take one of those blue sheets and they go, I hope it covers it. and really, that's what it looks like. And it's pretty bad. But in the actual autopsy room, and there's like 4 going, there's like 2 adjoining rooms. There's like 4 going on at a time. They boom, 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 boom. They're very quick. But there's this gigantic liver. and I just thought about, Thanksgiving with the turkey, and my stomach went, sorry.
Did anyone notice?
Yeah, the person next to me did. They were like, what? Sorry.
Okay, you didn't participate in a JCPenney's commercial,
No.
but it was.
A Sears commercial.
And you did shoot a .50 caliber sniper rifle, and
The target, I think I told you it was 1,000 yards. I think it might have only been 500, but it was a long way away. And it hit the bullseye. Yes.
and her college nickname was?
Foot, because I stick my foot in my mouth all the time.
Okay, one more volunteer.
Ooh, got 2.
Okay. All right. Our final contestant on the panel is Dana. Dana Cameron is the delightful, funny, award-winning author of the Emma Fielding series and her newest Fangborn series. She's an archaeologist who's worked in the U.S. and Europe. But did you know that Dana earned a spot on BBC's Masterpiece Theater with a description of washing 300-year-old trash? Trash. And she caused a Nobel Prize-winning author to flee her presence. Twice. Twice?
Twice.
Twice. She wore a knife strapped to her thigh at her wedding. And no, you may not see her thigh.
Is that the something borrowed?
While working in a museum that had a brick-lined pit beneath the basement, Dana discovered it was full of heroin, which is the truth.
Ooh, so many good things. Oh, I'd love to think about that heroin thing, but I just can't imagine. That's just too big. That's just too CSI. Or
I could be CSI. Come on here. I could be devious. Look at me.
yes, I see
With
them.
your
That's why I envisioned
Cardi.
the-
Cardi, treacherous
Nobody
Cardi.
can trust you.
I envisioned the knife thing. Totally envisioned the knife thing.
Oh, what's that?
I'm gonna go for the knife on the thigh. So let's go for the knife.
Dana, did you wear a knife strapped to your thigh at your wedding?
Yes, I did. I'm not that obvious. Come on. No. Well, see, the thing is that when I was doing archaeology, I always carried a Swiss Army knife, and because all my friends had them, I figured, why shouldn't I have one? And I had a Zermatt pouch. You know, very useful things, mostly for opening beer at the end of the day, right?
The church key.
We have the church key. It's all you need. But I realized that I could not, with the French lace and satin, wear the Zermatt pouch strapped to my waist that particular day, and I did not see a particular reason that I should leave it off. And I was trying to think, do I put it in the bouquet? Do I fix it as a decorative headpiece? I wasn't quite sure. So like, you know, I have garters to hold up my stockings. I'm going to make a little holster. I made one out of satin, a little embroidery. It was very sweet. And I wore it down the aisle. And I've always hated the tradition of throwing the garter. I've always thought it was deplorable. And frankly, I would have concussed anyone who got that when I tried to catch a broken few teeth. And so all my, no one knew about this, of course, but someone at my archaeology table of friends, the troublemakers, said, so, where's your knife? I'm like, wouldn't you like to know? They said, yes, and so they all gathered around. And I said, it's on my garter. They're like, we don't believe you. I'm like, yeah, you do. Like, no, show us. So I'm hiking up my wedding dress to show a bunch of, well, how can I put this, rough-looking gentlemen and really rough-looking young women, what's under my dress. Of course, no one at the other tables could see the knife and the garter, which is all, I wasn't being too judgmental. They just saw me hiking up my dress. So I did in fact wear my knife strapped to my thigh down to the wedding.
So did you throw the bouquet or the knife?
We were playing mumbly peg with the knife. We didn't have time. No, I managed not to give anyone a concussion with that. I thought about putting ball bearings in the ribbons to make it interesting, but ninja bridesmaid and everything.
Well, you did kind of have a CSI story on the museum. What was in the basement?
I did. What is traditional for archaeologists, we always get the spaces that no one else or other programs with a budget don't want. So we always get stuck in basements. And so I was working at a museum in Salem, and they were renovating the basement where I had been in storage for the museum for 200 years. This place had been a museum or a teaching institution since the late 18th century. And so when I was working in the library one day, because I couldn't go to the lab because it was being torn up, and my friend says, what do you know about human bones? I'm like, I can probably have a look at it. I mean, if it's a skull or something, I have no problem. Just come with me. And we go down to the basement where I had been working, and it was a very uneven floor, and there's a crack in the middle of the floor. And he lowers a light down into it, and it's a well, or a dry well, and it's absolutely full of human femurs, skulls, teeth, and it was unmistakably human. It's like, oh, it could be a pig, it could be a bear. No, it was human. It was like, and Silence of the Lambs had just come out. So everyone was bringing out. And what happened as we went on, because there were human bones, we had to alert them, there were protocols. So we went to the police, and we brought one of the femurs with us, and they go, well, how old do you think that is? I'm like, oh, it's probably at least 100 years old. Oh, we don't care. They had their evidence closet was full of kegs that they confiscated from the college down the street, so they weren't worried about bones that were 100 years old. It's just harmless fun for kids, right? So we can call the state archaeologists, and they're like, oh no, you totally have to excavate this. You have to find out what's going on. We don't know if there might be Native American materials in here that have to be repatriated. So we started excavating, and what it turned out that the skulls were in fact human. The femurs were human, but there were all sorts of scientific glass and bottleware and samples as well. And then we found a cast of a Native American pipe. It was made in plaster, and it had a number on it. And what had happened was that some earlier generation of archaeologists had swept up all the stuff that they weren't using anymore and dumped it down this old well. We would call that deaccessioning with terminal abandonment, with maximum prejudice. But we were actually able to find the numbers to some of the artifacts in the museum catalog, handwritten, so we were able to figure out where that happened. The other reason we knew it was archaeologists probably is that we found layers of beer bottles mixed in with it. And they were drinking bass. It was pretty neat, because they were like, oh, look, it was like that. So that was fun. It was creepy. It was weird actually, because I'd be held upside down and I'd be sort of scraping some things and taking pictures, and my colleagues would haul me back out. So it got acrobatic after a while.
That's where the knife came in here.
Yes, for the beer.
Okay, you did not cause a Nobel Prize-winning author to flee your presence, but...
I caused a Chevalier de Belles Lettres, who's been Andre Brink, who wrote Dry White Season and On the Contrary, and Andre Brink, right? One of the first, who was the first author to have a book banned in South Africa that was written in Afrikaans. He was writing in exile about apartheid and everything. He was teaching at Breadloaf, the writers' conference in middle grade, and I was a student that year, and the night before he read this amazing short story about like, oh my God, Andre Brink, because you never called him Andre because that would be too casual. It had to be Andre Brink all the time. And he was reading it, and I was eating lunch one day by myself, and he comes over and says, I'm like, oh my God, that's him. And I turn around and say, I really loved your reading last night. And I started choking on my sandwich. I was like, and it was so bad. I get a drink of water, and I go, and it's like, I could not stop. My face turned purple, and it was just a crumb from a sandwich or something. It was really stupid. And he just looked at me eventually, and it went on for a good 3 minutes, and he picked up straight and went away.
The lesson of that is don't choke in his presence, because he's not going to help you.
No. It's like, okay, you're obviously having issues. I don't know if he just thought I was going mad with adoration and ardor for him or what. But I avoided him the whole rest of the week, the 10 days. Turns out he was the instructor for my roommates section, and I had been very careful. And I see him sitting at our table when I come back with my breakfast tray. I'm like, okay, it's the last day. How bad can I screw this up? And so I'm being very careful. I'm chewing my food very, very carefully. I'm making learned remarks only occasionally, not doing anything. And he starts talking about the paper he's going to give us, the valedictory reading or lecture at Breadloaf. And he's talking about, the fact that computers were just starting to become a way that you could read books. And I said, well, it's really a whole different experience for me. You get a book from a foreign country, it smells different, the font is different, there's a whole sensory experience that's different in addition to, just the words on the page. And he sort of looks at me and gets up and goes away with his tray. And I'm like, what? That was okay. I thought that was not stupid for it. No food in my teeth as far as I can tell. He got up, and so we were sitting there listening to him present, and all of a sudden he reads a whole section in his paper, which was called The Madness of Scheherazade, which is a great title. And he starts talking about the experience of reading a book from a foreign country, how it's a different smell. And everyone's going, you never thought that Andre Brink had your genius? And I'm thinking, he thinks that I am stalking him. And then I hit up the administrator for a copy of his paper. I'm like, okay, I can't win. But I'm like, no, I really did have the same thought he did. I'm not stalking him. But he ran away from me twice.
And we can congratulate Dana. She's not going to be on Masterpiece Theater, but...
My description of my work in that aforementioned basement actually got the attention of a foreign national agency. And it turned out it was BBC Radio. I got an email from a producer who said, oh, I write a show about, it's called soul music. It's about the way a particular piece of music affects people in their lives. And so, they would have, for example, Brothers in Arms by Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler. And they talk about a playwright who had been inspired to write a play about the Troubles and another musician analyzing it. And I said, well, I saw that you are interested in Beethoven. Do you have any stories about Beethoven's Fifth? And I'm like, what? And I realized the folks at Crime Street Magazine had asked me to name the 5 albums that had changed my life. And so in the basement, I had been listening to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. So I'm like, well, most of my stories about his Ninth Symphony, but I can certainly come up with something for the Fifth. And it was really cool, so I told her about working in a basement and washing that 300 and 400-year-old trash, nothing but shirts and Beethoven to get me through the day, and be like, I'm going mad down here in this dark basement all by myself listening to Beethoven. It's going to be very noir and Lovecraftian in here in a minute. And she liked the story. She said, it's very visual. I was like, I'm the sad person in the basement listening to music by myself. That's like the Phantom of the Opera or something, you know. And she said, no. So I went into WGBH in Boston, and we went to the interview on that, and they actually played it. It was fairly cool because there was a guy who had been a conductor talking about it, and another person who'd been at the Merchant Marine had sailed into India with this playing at the Maharaja's palace or something. It was crazy stuff. And like, there's me in Russian artifacts. And I didn't sound like a dork. I was very excited. So, not Masterpiece Theater.
Okay, well, we will thank our authors for sharing their stories.